Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Data and Strategy Officer, HotelTonight, Amanda Richardson, and Chief Scientist and VP of Technology, Kayak, Matthias Keller, in discussion with Skift Travel Tech Editor, Sean O'Neill.
Very excited about this panel today. I want to start with a big data strategy question. So Amanda and Matthias, there's a lot of people here who want to try to figure out what their data strategy should be, if they're a hotel group, an airline, some supplier, or maybe a small travel startup. And then there's a lot of big tech companies in the audience who want to provide sort of the data science tools. They say they have the resources to do the deep machine learning. They have they're able to afford the salaries of data scientists. So what is your advice to small players in there's this big opportunity with mobile first. There's all of this data that has become available that wasn't there before. There's all these new tools for retailing and merchandising, being able to interrogate the data. And sort of the only way to learn that is to really get your hands in there and stuck in there. But how do you make that decision? What would your advice be? So maybe, Matthias, we'll start with you.
Yeah, great question. So I think the first, think of it as big data started as a little bit of a buzzword, and suddenly everyone wanted to do it, and data is the new oil. What I would recommend to anyone is sort of like, what problem are you trying to solve with data? What could that be? And if you're like a smart hotel, it could be a lot around price intelligence, because that's actually where you may have a lot of leverage against your competition. You could also think of topics like personalization, but you really need to have a certain scale where that really plays in. Like if you have this traveler who comes there maybe once to your property or once every year, not sure how much it's a data play, but I think it really starts at like, what's my opportunity? And then, can I do it myself? Maybe not. Or do I need to find a vendor? And I think depending on the popularity of the problem, there are many vendors out there. Like for instance, for price intelligence, there are.
Cool. Amanda, do you have a view?
Yeah, we're going to have to get more controversial in the next one, but I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, I think so much of what we've heard today has been interesting and great, but solutions, sometimes seeking a problem, and I think making sure you know what problem you're trying to address and what are you actually trying to fix and how do you focus in on the right solution. And then the common thing that I see, and I feel like I see a lot out in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, welcome to my hometown, thank you for coming, is that people want to go full force in everything, right? Everybody's trying to hire a data scientist as their third employee, and that makes no sense because you have no data, so there's no science to be done. So finding this like crawl, walk, run solution, and whether that's a consulting firm, whether that's an intern, whether that's a part-time person, figure out how to bite-size it, so really focus in on the problem to solve and then solve it in the smallest way possible before you make this huge commitment to a data stack or a data solution you don't even know what you signed up for.
So there's a data scientist is not a magical person. You may have different components in your team.
No, and if they tell you they are, look out. Snake oil. But yeah, no, data science is bringing together a lot of different aspects, and I think looking at the business, the technology aspects, as well as kind of the statistical rigor and the methodology is important. And you can find that across a team you may already have, actually. If you look hard enough or kind of want to augment just one of those three pieces.
Cool. You mentioned there were some solutions in search of the problem, maybe mentioned earlier on stage. Did anything catch your mind or are things buzzed about in the travel technology industry that you feel are?
I don't know that it's travel specifically. I think there's a lot of things in technology, a lot of things around AI, a lot of things around people always have a bot for something. I think there are a lot of interesting things being done with technologies in other areas that may not apply to our segment. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything that's come to mind this morning.
Okay, all right.
But I reserve the right to check my mind and come back in 10 minutes.
Please do. So Matthias, Alexa has been a real important tool for Kayak. You guys have been innovators there. Earlier today we heard Air Canada's been practicing with it. Expedia says voice is the future. So talk a little bit about what you've been doing there.
Yeah, so we have been working with Alexa and also the Google Assistant and some more of these platforms for a bit more than 2 years now. We started with natural language processing, not really knowing what can we do with it, but then we got the strongest signal on voice. We are now really heavily invested in it, and our journey was, it is really like figuring out basically every month what works. We have some really very futuristic products there, like we can book hotels on Alexa since last year. But we keep going, and we now find these smart things like the example of it. It's not only like we started as an information gathering tool, like pulling out information with voice, but now we are kind of like towards the smart agent with a new feature like you can now ask Alexa to ask Kayak, notify me when a plane landed. So you have this little agent out there that is kind of like watching the planes for you and notifying you with a little chime that just the plane landed. And this is like super practical, and we are thinking that it's going towards these really little small helpers. When is my flight? Is it on time? When do I have to head out to the airport? And there's a lot of data at play because, for instance, if you just think of the question, when do I have to head out of the airport? There is a lot of information that you just don't have. It's about traffic, how long do I have to wait? And we're actually trying to crowdsource some of this data even, like the TSA wait times. But it's still actually a very, very hard problem to solve, and we are hoping and we're very committed to figure that out, and it will take a while, and it's very early right now.
Okay, so to follow up on that point, so Skift Research just published a report about Amazon and what its potential in travel is, and one of the things that came up in that is that there's a psychological addiction. One of the reasons why phones have become so popular is you never know when that cute cat photo is going to come across on Instagram. And when it does, you get that, that dopamine hit, and it's kind of like being in a casino. You sort of keep coming back, and that the Alexa team says that the equivalent they're seeing when they're power users is that it's a relief for them. They're overbooked. They don't know when soccer practice is or when the flight is departing. And so they ask Alexa, and that's the most used. So it sounds like some of the skills that might be very popular for travel are not the strict transaction kind of things. You have to move beyond that. So is there any other examples? Does that dovetail with what you're finding, or?
It definitely does. So first of all, transaction is just not there yet. It's not ready yet. Like, for instance, payment in travel is an extremely complicated topic, and not many platforms master it. I'm not even sure if I would say that smartphones master it. Right. So like, it's just many, many years out on voice. But then, yeah, I definitely agree, like, voice from the interface, it's really like simple input, simple output. And that's why we see a lot of engagement on like tracking flights, getting notified when you're landing, or just like in the inspiration, like, where can I go for $500? But it definitely, and we also heard that during the conversation with the executive from Southwest, it is like booking a flight is very information heavy, and it's without a display, it's kind of a hard task right now.
Understood. So Amanda, it seems like HotelTonight is on fire. You've got downloads in 26 million downloads or so in about nearly 40 countries. You hit like your average daily revenue records. You've broken like 5 times in May or so. If you could talk a little bit about what you guys are seeing in terms of going beyond the transaction. HotelTonight has similarly not just dropped the guest in front of the hotel desk. What have you been doing there? Yeah,
we're excited for really thinking holistically about the stay, and I think a lot of what we've done to date has been around making sure you get into the right hotel, and a lot of times for our users that's not the cheapest price necessarily, so much as the best value. So figuring out what that right stay is, one brand may be cheaper than the other one, but that second one's much nicer. So, and then once we've figured out what the right property is for you, how do we make sure you have a seamless stay? So we've done a number of different pieces of experimentation. One of the things that we've seen a huge adoption from our most loyal users is our pros service. So this is just a chat interface to be able to request various things about the hotel, about your stay. And I'll be honest with you, it's not the most sophisticated technologically thing we've ever done. Like, we threw some natural language processing at it, and we were kind of like, that's slightly better than the people, but not much. So, but I think it's about making that experience seamless. I mean, I don't really like to talk to people anymore. Maybe I'm a millennial and I'm grouchy, but like, it's much easier to just be able to do everything from my phone, whether it's ordering housekeeping or checking in or whatever it is. And so trying to find ways to seamlessly enable that experience, which helps our hotel partners who maybe can't invest in that, and we have the teams that are able to do that, but are also giving them a differentiated experience and a way to win back customers.
Nice. So everyone in the audience got a copy of our Skift magazine, and we have research from our Skift research team about how travelers are feeling about giving up personally identifiable information in an age of lots of scandals and problems. mobile gives you an option to collect data that isn't necessarily personally identifiable. So how does HotelTonight sort of do that for relevance? You know?
So yeah, this is ground zero for like bad data usage, right? So welcome to Silicon Valley. We're very proud of how we've always maintained our privacy policies. Everything we collect has always been with permission from users, and all of our use cases have been we never ask a user for anything that doesn't have a value to them. And the value is not reselling or upselling. The value is improving that experience. You know, a push notification to tell you when your chat message is coming through to tell you housekeeping is done with your room, or you know, location notification to make sure we're finding you the right properties near you. So we've always been very judicious about that, and probably are more so now than ever, because it is a value for mobile, but it's also something that if we lose it, it's a problem, and we need to make sure we have a differentiated experience around it.
Okay. So Matthias, the classic desktop experience, I first used Kayak in 2006 or so. The idea is you get this breadth and depth of content, but now in the mobile first, it's very limited, so you have to give relevance. How can you do that while managing the personalization challenge?
Yeah, so at Kayak, I think we have two big jars of data that are important to the business. And the first chart is the pricing data. So this is luckily not PII. It is pure pricing data, content from our suppliers. And then I would say that the second area where we collect the most data is our product, which we call Kayak Trips, which is the itinerary management. And this is a very strong opt-in feature. So basically, you are sending us your booking confirmation to process it, to put it into a nice itinerary on your mobile phone, that you always have it with you. You can just take a peek. What's the address of my hotel? When is my flight going? And it has extreme value for the user. It's totally obvious why you're sharing this data, because you want to have it in this nice UI. And so the essence is that the mobile phone, it gives us this opportunity to give the user a really helpful, kind of like Swiss Army knife in your hand. They can use it. There is controlled data sharing. They know what they put in. They know what they get out of it. And it is true that it is certainly not the full-fledged feature set that you get on desktop. And this is just like focusing on the exact same tools they need on the road, and also focusing on products that you can buy on a mobile phone. Like, let's say if we talk about something really complicated like a cruise, what we see is that this is really, it takes a big screen because you're making a very, 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 very high ticket purchase.
Well, to stay with you for a minute, Matthias, OpenTable recently got put into the Kayak box. Does that play into sort of this idea of getting more touch points with Travis? How does that fit in with what Kayak's doing?
So OpenTable is an extremely important part of the Booking Holdings group. And there is an interesting intersection between destination services, and one of them is dining. There's definitely more thought behind it, which I would refer to Steve to answer. But I think the overall picture is that it really fits nicely into the overall destination services everywhere in the world. The services just beyond the flight ticket, beyond the hotel, which can be restaurants or activities and everything you can do.
Will you be doing data science work for the OpenTable team, or you don't know yet?
My teams are all working on the Kayak apps. So I'm responsible for mobile AI and have a couple of data scientists. Okay,
thanks for clarifying. So what is a cringe-worthy mistake that a company could make in data?
Is it too soon to say personalization?
Yeah, you can. Please.
But I think Matthias had a good point earlier about, you know, a particular hotel property who maybe has infrequent touches. That's not the time to personalize. I do think that is a big one where people are personalizing an experience that doesn't need to be, or no user is interested in solving that problem. I think the other one is data science, like we talked about. Everybody wants to hire a data scientist immediately, and I think that's a unique skill set that people want. And then I think the other one is actually, we were talking a little bit backstage about this, is cleaning and organizing your data. I think I'm talking to technologists, so this is probably preaching to the choir, but we can all go back and tell our respective bosses and boards that they need to invest more in kind of organizing and cleaning the data, because if you don't have it, I can make the data say anything, trust me, I can make the data say anything, but what you want is accuracy, and that only comes from a solid foundation, which everybody really needs to invest in.
That makes sense.
I'd like to weigh in on personalization with one point. I think when you think of personalization, you think a lot of PII and like my preference, but you really also have to think of the power of the crowd.
Right.
So like something like a popular hotel that doesn't necessarily just point at Amanda. It just means like a lot of people like this specific property. And I think when we talk about personalization, we have to think of this crowd knowledge that we can feed into our products and that make the products better for everyone in a different segment or just everyone who uses it.
So an example is that you would infer that based on a traveler's, you would group them with an affinity and then see, like Netflix, like this group has tended to book this, and then crowdsource. And then for you, a dumb personalization it would be if I booked a Lux hotel on a Saturday and then I'm booking on a Tuesday and I get a Lux pushed at me, but maybe I would want to have more of a business experience or something else. They use other contextual clues, or
and I think that's the crowd plus the contextual clues, either time of day of week. I mean, there's a lot of information out there around like what determines these things that I think people should use and look at. I think dumb personalization, as you've booked. I was talking with someone earlier actually. So you're a person who travels and does one big vacation a year or one big vacation every other year. And so last year you had a great time in, Maui, and then 2 years later, you're probably not going to go to Maui, but they're recommending Maui because you've done that before, right? And it just doesn't make any sense because you've had this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for you. And so I think it's that external knowledge that you really need to think about when you're doing that one-to-one personalization, as opposed to people who have gone to Maui as a crowd have also preferred, I don't know, Phoenix or whatever.
Sure.
And there's also a secret, just to add, there's a serious problem also of frequency. Like you have power users, but generally if you think of the amount of Netflix you watch and the amount of vacations you take.
Right.
Unfortunately, they're not one-to-one.
Yes.
So to go back to Amazon again, so one of the reasons why Amazon's very good at Alexa is because they have all the shopping data. So a lot of Alexa's shopping queries are very good. On music, it's very good. In 2016, they ingested a lot of music data and lyrics and stuff. What kind of travel data should Amazon ingest in order to become better at the part where Kayak leaves off and Amazon picks up in terms of natural language processing? Do you have any opinion, Matthias?
I'm right now not really thinking yet as Amazon in the travel space. You can go really broad, like maybe we should know that you were just checking out a couple of Lonely Planets because like you may soon be in the market. I see it from that I think Amazon may have a lot of interesting interest data on users, which could feed into a better personalization again. But other than that, I must say they are an incredibly nice to work with technology and platform partner, and this is where we focus on right now, and it's really amazing technology, not only Alexa, but also AWS and many of the services offered. Sure.
So Amanda, what would be your advice to Amazon on travel?
I think they have to figure out recommendations for an infrequent purchase, an infrequent, non-repeatable purchase, right? Amazon does great for me when I order my Bounty paper towels every month in my Amazon Subscribe and Save. I don't repeat purchase. I sometimes travel in a Lux on the weekend, and I want a basic hotel on a Tuesday because my boss won't pay for a Lux, whatever those different experiences are. And I think that's a lot of contextual information and in a place in the user's heart where I don't think they've yet established themselves. And I think that's their challenge. We were talking, someone mentioned earlier Google, and I think if I think about who I lose sleep over, it's more the Google who already reads my Gmail, knows my calendar, listens to my phone. That's the type of intimate data that I think is actually really interesting to play with.
Okay. We'll go to audience questions next. If you're using the Slido app, you can vote up and down questions that you like, and that affects what we see at the top for our choices. One last question from me would be about, is the hockey stick curve on AI and data science and machine learning adoption, is it going to increase? Are tools like Google ML and a lot of boot camps and things, are there structural things in place that's going to enable more and more people who don't have data science to sort of get in there and have it?
I hope so. I mean, I'm all in on that world. I mean, I think about, my mother recently retired, was a computer programmer in 1963 or whatever, and so she once declared that we would never have computers in our house because that was the most absurd thing. So I think there is an opportunity.
My father was a computer programmer too, said the same thing.
Said the same thing. It seemed crazy, right? And so, I'm cognizant of that bias with myself, being like, no one can ever have a data science team as good as ours, right? I mean, there's probably going to be a little widget on the table that's your data science team eventually, and I think that's powerful and interesting, and I think has a lot of ways of improving our lives. Certainly from travel, but also other industries where there's a lot of good we can do around healthcare and interesting things around applying data to make us smarter and anticipate problems that I'm really excited about.
Cool. Matthias, do you have any view on that?
I think my perspective, and I see a lot of industry initiatives, I think the most powerful combination is to teach software engineers to understand statistics, or the other way around, because you end up otherwise in this kind of mathematical paper that kind of gets not built into a product. And if you merge these two functions, it can be extremely powerful.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that.
So some audience questions. In the future, how will human interaction figure into trip planning? Who wants to take that one?
Well, human interaction is trip planning these days. Are we I guess, are we talking about collaborative planning? Is this group travel? I'm not sure.
Will the bots replace?
Will the bots replace trip planning? I mean, look, my husband and I can't even figure out where we want to go on vacation. If anyone can automate that process, I'm all in. But I think there's a long way to go in terms of actually just having that perfect trip. I think that's pretty far out. And so, unfortunately, as humans, you're still all responsible for picking your vacation.
I think I have a shameless plug here. At Kayak, we just launched a product called Huddle, which is a group planning tool for travel. And we've seen the demand that, usually when groups of friends or different families travel, there's always this one person who does the whole weightlifting. And we want to empower that person to have an easier task in meeting everyone's needs, which is likely not possible. But actually, it's extremely human, because if you ever planned trip with friends, you talked a lot, I guess.
Cool. Okay. How do you archive data? Does it change under the new privacy laws in Europe? They have GDPR's new privacy laws.
I mean, I guess the beauty of being a startup is we're still early in our data collection and data age. So we do anonymize and hash and do all sorts of things around data privacy and data security, so that everything is anonymized even within the systems. So I don't even know who our users are. But in terms of how long we archive it, we keep it as long as it's relevant to the business. And so, and there are different portions we keep longer if anybody really wants to dig in on the privacy policy and data retention policy. Call me.
Okay. Matthias, any view?
Yeah, so generally data privacy and security has always been mandated as kind of a very strong field from Booking Holdings. So you can imagine there's a lot of constant auditing and controlling happening. Looking at a GDPR question, I mean, we definitely see a lot of demand of consumers now to try out what that means and kind of what new rights they have. But to be honest, the major change was that there is now the portability, and I think the major change is the processes have always been in place. They just get tested and triggered more now.
Cool. Does Kayak give the data over to other suppliers or brands? Can a hotel group peek in and see what the patterns are? Not personally identifiable data.
I think we definitely have partners in the marketing platform that, for instance, get used for retargeting or different services like that. But generally, there is no data sharing, as you would right now read in the news about we are not selling email addresses or anything like that.
Okay. Cool.
It is really for personalizing your experience, and that's the only purpose.
Cool. Well, for anyone who's wondering, Amanda, you're due in September, is that right?
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Yeah, there you go. You're due. Your next data event is what's the day?
Our global forum is in September, so we'll be thinking positive thoughts for you there.
Thank you.
Amanda and Matthias, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.